Hi guys, my name is Christina and welcome to my channel and welcome to yet another episode of the podcast. This episode is actually going to be pretty short, as you can tell. Like I thought previous one was short, it was at 28 minutes. This one is even shorter, but as I said originally when I started this, I'm very honest with you guys. If I didn't draw much during the weekend, I'm going to show you that I didn't draw much. And the previous weekend, you probably could have picked up that I was a little mad about it, the fact that I didn't draw enough. And I was like beating myself up because I felt like maybe I was not motivated, maybe I didn't have enough energy. But this particular weekend, for some reason, I was absolutely fine with doing just this, just an hour or so, like it's almost an hour and a half to 2 hours. This is how much I drew in total. I actually can tell by looking at the footage. And I actually am not mad with that. I don't know why. It's kind of like weird with drawing sometimes. I think my own satisfaction with how well I did doesn't come from necessarily just the time spent. It's also, I also keep in mind how much pages in total did I draw this month, and what I draw, like if I started on one page and by the time I stopped drawing for the weekend, I'm still on the same page is not finished. It's like it feels like there's no progress. So yeah, it's a lot of factors, and this particular weekend, it actually was the end of March, and I was doing progress. I started working on another page, like I'm not starting working on it during like the weekend. As you can see, I already had the face of this guy kind of somewhat done. I just wanted to kind of finish this particular panel. So this particular weekend, I'm feeling darn fine, even though it's just like it's 18 minutes of sped up footage. Next weekend, though, the episode that is coming after this one is actually going to be pretty long because in Canada, it's a long weekend. I'm not sure if it's in the whole North America or just in Canada or just in Ontario. It's complicated. Different holidays happen in US or Canada, like the same type of holidays on different dates, and between provinces, we have like some provinces get to have a long weekend, another one doesn't have it. I don't know, it's very complicated, but the next episode's a long weekend, and actually I know that I have 7 hours of footage, so I drew a lot, but I also had 3 days instead of 2, so I'm not sure what I'm gonna do with that footage. If I speed it up, it's still gonna be a hell of a lot of footage. I'm not sure I have enough words to fill it in, but nonetheless, next episode is for sure is going to be longer. We will see what's going to do with this. But this episode is just actually going to be just me drawing the face of this guy and making it look better. Because as you can see now, like what I'm scaling is going to help the fact that I'm scaling it a little bit of movement. So in this particular episode, I will be just focusing on drawing just the face of this guy, just this panel. And yeah, that's literally going to be the focus of the whole episode. One more thing, if you hear something in the background, like I have a washing machine going, and I always do that. I always put washing machine or a dishwasher, and right before I want to film or record a podcast, I'm like, yeah, I'm gonna record a podcast, let me put this on real quick, and then unless it recorded, I'm like, wait a second. But I don't know, I spent a lot of money on this microphone, and it's supposed to be as a latent background sound, so I hope it's not really distracting if you hear something in the background. Yeah, so just sorry in advance for that, but this is just the moment to film, and apparently it's the moment to wash my workout clothes. Yeah, so basically in this episode, since we're basically going to be just drawing the face of this guy, I wanted to focus on talking about actually drawing faces, and especially drawing faces in like front position like this. I noticed that when I was just a beginner artist, like when I just was trying to get to draw faces, I find that when you draw face like front facing you or just side, it was super easy for me to draw, and anything more complicated wasn't. More complex angle, these were the ones that demanded challenges, the ones I was failing with. And now, as I've been drawing for a very long amount of time, and I drew like a jillion of faces, what I noticed in weird thing that drawing front facing face, like I don't know, like how do they call it, like a front of the face. In Russia we have like a term, it's like anfas, I think, I don't know, but I noticed that this one's becomes more complicated because they're just about symmetry, and it's like it's so simple, but at the same time, because it is so symmetrical, this is where all the asymmetrical ways how you draw, they pop, and you can actually notice. And as you know, I talk a lot about, like, you know, flipping your page, mirror your image all the time, because we just naturally will be drawing asymmetrical, because it's like a lot of factors involved. Like, we are asymmetrical beings, and also like we have it's just like symmetry is not natural occurrence in nature. We have like somewhat symmetry, but actual symmetry doesn't really exist. So I think this is why symmetry is kind of harder to draw, and you have to constantly mirror your image. And in art school they would say, like, take your work and, you know, look in the mirror when you're looking at your work. So it's like mirror it through the actual physical mirror if you're drawing traditionally, just to see, because it's really important. So when you're drawing angles like 3/4, something like this, like characters turning or they're talking, or I don't know, they're different poses, this is where it's easier to get away with something being not as symmetrical. But when you're drawing kind of like angle like this, you can't avoid noticing any asymmetry that is happening and how it comes across, unless you like flip your image horizontal. Unless you do that, you just have this feeling that something is off, but you cannot tell. And there is a lot of so many small things that are really on display in this particular angle that you have to keep in mind. For example, for me, something that you can notice that I'm constantly adjusting is here, exactly the size of the face, like the size of the like eyebrow, nose, mouth combination in relationship to the head itself. I tend to draw like the features of the face a little bit bigger than they're supposed to be on the face, and I'm not sure what I'm doing this. I guess maybe because I'm so distracted by the fact that I get to draw emotion, and obviously those are the parts that are the most responsible for emotion appearing in our faces. So I do pay a lot of attention to this, and I tend to draw features of the face bigger than they're supposed to be in relationship to the skull, and I keep adjusting it. Then I definitely do know that as for my comic, I do draw eyes a little bit bigger than they're supposed to be in real life, and this is just my personal trick that I do when I draw comics. It's just not like a trick, it's something that naturally started happening, and I realized as I was, you know, going through my comic and thinking how to draw it even more realistic and whatnot, I realized, yeah, the proportion wise eyes that I'm drawing are bigger than they're supposed to be in real life. And you know what? I'm actually fine with that. I feel they still read more or less realistic. However, it works for the comic to have eyes a little bit bigger because it's easier to show emotion. I do other things that are a little bit not physically accurate. Like, for example, I do allow like the, how do you call it, like iris or retina, like the colored part of the eyes kind of shrink and extend depending on the emotion that the character has. This is not at all how eyes work. It's like anime way of making eyes work and to express emotions. But so I'm fine with my eyes being a little bit bigger for my characters, but like overall face, I tend to do like features bigger. And I do tend to do like mouth a little bit bigger when I draw faces in like front facing, just because I don't know, I noticed that because the mouth is kind of wraps around the face, so when we have angles like looking a little bit from the side, from the you know, a little bit from above, we can notice how actually big the mouth is because it kind of wraps around. But when we're drawing from the front, we don't see kind of how the wrapping around the face. So we kind of only see, we don't see that basically. And when you look at the face from the front, mouth looks smaller, I think, than when you're observing the face in 3D from different angles. So I still like in the mode of working from different angles, and I tend to draw the mouth bigger than it actually is. So I always have to go back and shrink it a little bit. Another thing that I feel is actually difficult to kind of work with this particular angle is that you still have to make sure that your face that you're drawing is three-dimensional, so that it just moves in not like moves, like the shape develops in space. So for example, this guy is looking at us. It is tempting to just draw, you know, his facial features, the outline of his head and hair and whatnot, and be done with it. But we need to remember that his face, like even though from the way we're looking at him, it just only extends sideways, like, but we need to remember that his face always also goes in depth, right? So areas that like that where we see like cheeks and the side of the face, they're actually they're going away from us. Those are surfaces that are not directly facing us right now, so they're actually going away from us. So we need to work with the shadow to sell the fact that this is 3D object, this face is 3D object, and we know that the nose is closer to us than we see, like, for example, lips, they're close to us, but then like cheeks and, you know, ears that are farther away from us, they're farther. So we need to make sure we feel like the shape, like from the center of the face, kind of curves and goes away from us towards the ears. So that's kind of the tricky part, because when you, again, drawing the face like this facing you directly, it's very easy to just forget about 3D aspect of the face, I guess, because like all of this quote unquote easiness of the angle is not easy. Another thing that I actually wanted to talk about when drawing your face, like not your face or your face, but basically just the face, and in this case face of your character facing you, what is important to do, or rather not to do, what I used to do before, is that flipping part of your character, like you're drawing one part of the face and then you want to flip it. You know, what kind of, I mean, like you select half of the face that you already drew, and then you mirror it, and then you add it. So kind of like a mirroring half of the face to create the whole face. So this is something that I strongly recommend you try not to do. I strongly recommend you try to do the whole face and then just mirror the image back and forth to see if you got it right or got it wrong. And if you did get it wrong, it's perfectly fine. Just go and adjust. And I would suggest just going back and forth and adjusting rather than just drawing half of the face and then flipping, because so what happens when you do this, it creates this alien kind of non-natural feel because of different reasons. First of all, as I mentioned before, symmetry really doesn't exist. Even the faces that so it's kind of tricky. As we're drawing face, we want to make it appear symmetrical, right? But weird thing happens when you make it like actually like mathematically symmetrical, then it starts looking weird. You can do it with your own photograph. You could just take your own photograph and like mirror one side of your face and like flip it to another side and see like the brand new person that's gonna look at you, and it's gonna look a little creepy because this is like mathematical symmetry, right? And it's not looking realistic. So it's just proportion wise, if you're doing that, it's just gonna look unnatural. So, and another aspect that you want to pay attention to is that not only this is gonna be looking unnatural because of the proportions, because how they're gonna be super exact. Another thing that is gonna be funky is the lighting, because basically what you're doing as you're mirroring the half of the face, you're already assuming like just drew some lighting on the face, right? You have shadows, you have light, you have reflex, whatever. You have like a lot of stuff going on already, lighting and shading wise. And when you're mirroring, so you're basically saying that there is the light that is lit in one side of the face. Now you're kind of also mirroring the whole light, so you're assuming that the light is kind of also symmetrical. I don't know how to even explaining it right, but basically you're creating the non-natural lighting. The face of your character will be lit in a very weird way because both sides of his face are almost lit by two symmetrically mirrored sets of lighting, and that's just in lighting that is more or less natural, something like very diffuse light. Let's say, for example, the character is standing under overcast skies, when the light is very, very soft, but where any sort of directional light happens, which is most of the cases, it's just gonna look strange. And again, it's not gonna look realistic, it's not gonna look real, and this is not what we want. We want our drawings to look realistic and look real. Things that I would suggest you can mirror is something like ears. Ears are, nobody pays a lot of attention to the ears, and actually this is something that I learned when I was studying in my college in Seneca when I was taking course in VFX. As you guys know, I work in VFX industry, and one of our teachers, he said that he very often keeps ears from other models that they build for characters. For example, you have a CG double, so you have a character from the movie doing crazy stuff, and you have a 3D version of this character that you replace the physical live action actor with in some fancy jumping scenes and whatnot. So you have like a exact copy of the actor in like character suit or whatnot, but you have a CG version of it. And they would actually model it exact, like using references and whatnot. And he said that a lot of the time he just he doesn't model ears. He just has a set of ears that he uses for all of his models, because nobody ever pays attention to ears, and people never notice if you kind of use the wrong ears. So this is kind of what it reminds me about. So, but yeah, nobody actually notices ears that much, and ears actually can be a good kind of thing that helps you create the feeling of symmetry. Just putting the ears on them, making sure they're on the same kind of axis. That just for this, like just copy and flip the one ear and just, have two ears now. So this is something that I totally fine with mirroring, but I would suggest you be a little bit careful with mirroring parts of the face. It's just not gonna look realistic, and even though it's tempting, even though it feels like it's gonna make things easy immediately, even though it feels like an easy fix, easy cheat, and just know it's gonna look a little strange. And yeah, just draw it, try to do your best to draw it yourself, and then just mirror your canvas horizontally and just double check and see if you made any mistakes or whatnot. And if you did, it's absolutely fine. Just, fix it. And as you're fixing, you're actually learning. And yeah, it's just challenge yourself, to push yourself to draw a little bit like harder things and like do it the hard way, because it becomes easy once you do enough of the hard drawing sessions. That's when nothing anymore scares you. So yeah, this is kind of my little spiel. As you can see, as I said, didn't draw much for this. I decided to stop on his face for now, and then I jumped on another page, the page that I actually was drawing last episode and that I didn't still finish, and I decided to work on this particular panel. And actually it was pretty successful. I finished it pretty quickly after I started it. Actually, I got into more of a drawing mode, so things got sped up, and that's also why I drew a lot of for the next drawing podcast. But yeah, so this drawing podcast wasn't really super long as I usually do them, but again, honest, I'm showing you exactly how much I drew. So yeah, thank you so much guys for coming and checking out this video. I really appreciate you. And yeah, thank you so much for watching, and I hope to see you in my next video. Thank you guys.